Oh my God, it's Tuesday. We're running late. Holy Lord, it's Tuesday. It's been a hot mess of a couple of weeks. Welcome back to Comic News Weekly. We've got two topics we want to discuss tonight. Is Marvel retiring Peter Parker Spider-Man as we know it? Question mark. And are we seeing a fluctuation in the market between raw books and graded books and the sales of those books? We want to talk about it tonight. Before we do, we're going to introduce our guest tonight, and we're going to talk a little bit. It's been a rough couple of weeks. We're getting back on the saddle. Heroes Con was last week, which was an amazing adventure with 35, 40 plus individuals from the IG YouTube comic book community coming together. Lots of great content out from those people. I can sit here and name you a giant list of all the content creators that recorded content. I, for one, have fallen behind. I have not been able to throw together my Heroes Con content. I do want to going forward. We transitioned right from Heroes Con right into a funeral. We had a death of a family member recently, and that was really tough for the family. So we had to go traveling from Heroes Con to a funeral, and supporting the family was a difficult time. And not to mention, for those of you that follow on Instagram, we were stuck in the Charlotte airport for almost 2 full days. Thank you to that airline. More importantly, thank you to that airline for getting me home in time to be there to support my family for that funeral that morning. That was pretty crazy to have several delayed flights into a flight cancellation at midnight into it. The earliest we can get you out of here is 6 a.m. I'm like, that's going to do. Then you're stuck at the airport. And then if you've ever flown and you've ever traveled, you've lived the trials and tribulations of that, and that's not fun. But here we're back. We're back. It's Comic News Weekly. It's Tuesday, and like we said, we want to talk about, is Marvel potentially retiring Peter Parker to Spider-Man as we know it? And where do people stand with that? You guys in the live chat tonight will share your opinions. Everybody watching this on a replay can comment down below. We want to hear from you guys, the comic community, on your opinion of the potential retirement of Peter Parker. And this isn't the first time or the last time people have talked about retiring Spider-Man. If you search it, you'll find some more stuff. We also are going to talk about, like we said, the sales of raw books versus graded books and where the market is trending right now. So please share your opinion down below if you're watching this on the replay, or hop in the live chat. Be one of the cool people and hang out in the live chat with us. Speaking of cool people, hanging out with us here tonight is our brethren, Ryan from Rhynoverse. What is up, man? How are you?
Is down in that Red Bull trying to get my juices flowing. It's been a long, hot. Did I mention it was hot here in Texas? The summers in Texas are brutal. We're currently sitting at about just over 100, and it's only June. I am scared to death as to what August is going to bring.
Ooh, just June, just over 100. Hey, man, thanks for busting your chops and sweating your tail off and fighting to be here tonight. I know it's not easy, everybody making the schedule. As you guys can see, it's Ryan and I for the time being. Bryan and Bryan are out, one with a power outage and another one with a slight emergency that he's taking care of. That's fine. We'll still run the show. And again,
wait. Did we transport to some new place, or if I have never noticed the cool digs were in here?
This has always been for 3 years the Comic Dojo in the background, but because we've been running 4 and we've been running the SimpleMan's background, see, that's why I kind of had a mini panic earlier, as I had forgotten to swap over from ComicManAndy to Comic News Weekly. That's why the intro wasn't there. Either way, hey, a couple of hiccups here and there. We're here.
I like that. That was cool. That was pretty fresh. I felt like I had like feng shui.
I know, right? Like Comic Dojo kind of sounds kind of fun.
I was definitely dojoing.
I'm looking forward to hanging out just you and I tonight, because this show has always been developed and kind of worked around the idea of 3, 4 to 5 people sharing opinions on like almost a rapid fire. And then it developed into 4 individuals that had shown up every week and built this relationship over years now. Actually, Ryan, you've been here on this show for a year and a half or more now.
Yeah, it's been a while. And it's funny. I don't know if you remember how I finagled my way onto this show.
I don't. Please tell us really quick.
So Bryan was, I had reached out to Bryan, and they had the show going, and I was like, hey, I was like, did you ever have any special guests on? And he's like, yeah, we're thinking about having some community members. I was like, oh, okay. So if you do, let me know. And he's like, well, we'll try. We can do it this week. And I was like, okay. And then I just kept coming. I showing. And so it worked. I got to get on that because I like being on the show. It's one of my favorite things, but it's something I look forward to every week. And I have my channel, but it's just I just enjoy the conversation. It's not so much having the channel; it's more or less have the conversation and hang out with buddies. And in this world, because we're all so far apart, y'all are very close to me as close friends to me, but we've never even shaken hands before, which is crazy.
One of these days we'll meet up at a convention. That being said, for anybody watching this on the replay or here live with us tonight, there are open seats on this go, like there always has been. We've just never really communicated it. Nights that Bryan and Bryan don't make it, like there's open seats here tonight now for these topics and these discussions. So there's always room for other beautiful family members in the community, if you will. Another message just threw me off topic here, but there's room for more people here that want to talk than just you and I. So it's an open invite to those people that we know from the community that have the equipment, that have the not ability necessarily, but that are interested in having a say in some of these topics live, because we look forward to the comments. We look forward to the live chat, but hey, it's awesome being able to chat live face to face, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna wear my hat backwards. I've never worn it backwards, but I figured, hell, I'm gonna me and my brother are gonna be wearing a backwards hat. It's the dynamic duo, and my light broke, so it's really putting a shadow on my face. I don't want to. I don't want to mess up this beautiful mug I have.
I'm convinced this is how we now date ourselves as middle-aged married men with children, is wearing a backwards hat. Either way,
well, I'm just give my ode to Limp Bizkit.
Well played, sir. Everybody's rolling into the chat. 20 people watching live. Thank you so much. We're already 7 minutes in, just kind of chatting. Ryan, man, this is not the first time that an article like this has come up where people or people out in the community, not in the community, but not necessarily in the know, but people writing these articles that are reviewing this stuff have said in the past, in years, that Marvel could potentially be retiring Peter Parker as Spider-Man. And it's been 61 years. Peter Parker, Spider-Man.
I think we were having a conversation about that actually not too long ago in one of the other shows that we had, because we were saying how they're always trying to come up with a new storyline for the character, and it's like there's been a lot of storylines. They have a lot of run on some of these characters. I mean, Peter Parker, he's older than me, but he still looks younger than me, and in that time frame there's been a lot of iterations of him. There's been a lot of different movies about him. There's a lot of games about him, and it's just starts getting kind of tired, and it gets difficult to, I think, tell a new fresh story when it's heard so many different stories. I mean, if you look at Superman, is, I love Superman. I grew up with Superman. He's iconic. I could never imagine a world without Superman, but I would love to see a new story, something that's, how do you get a fresh idea with Superman,
Well, that's the tough part here. We had talked about not necessarily superhero fatigue a few weeks ago. We talked about fatigue with specific characters, right? Like, how many times can you redo this character, that character? With Peter Parker, Spider-Man, for 60 plus years. How did Jim Lee state it? He wanted Spider-Man to be the superhero that everybody could be, that anybody could be, or relatable to anybody. Well, how relatable is Peter Parker now after all these years of that same character in that same position with the same kind of stories? Like, they even had to create an alternate universe to go back to his high school years, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that with the version, I think what it is too, that with Miles Morales coming around, and when Miles Morales came around, I was like, this is gonna be like here today, gone tomorrow character. I had there's no way he was gonna last or be a long-term a character. I've eaten my words on that, because he's still here and he's still got stuff going on and still fairly popular. And maybe they feel like they can relax a little bit and maybe start focusing more on his story to capture that newer audience. And the handoff of that role it'd be unprecedented if they're able to hand that role off to a different character, but continue the same fandom and retire a character. That's never been done before.
Well, that makes me kind of wonder about this introduction of Spider-Boy this summer, right?
Yeah.
There's been a little bit of talk about that. There's are Ryan and I, anybody in the chat, are Ryan and I saying that Marvel's retiring Spider-Man? Not necessarily. What we're saying is the universe and the planets are kind of aligning for Marvel to be in a profitable, I don't even if profitable is the right word, but a position to for a changing of the guards, like what you're saying, Ryan. And I mean, even Tom Holland spoke about the potential going forward of retiring from the Spider-Man franchise after making the money that he's made. He's happy where things are at. I know that they've began work on the fourth Spider-Man movie installment I was reading, but in the same fashion, if I remember correctly, don't quote me. I'll paraphrase this heavily a bit here. I remember him saying something about to the effect of he'll only come back if it's better than the last movie. So I will I will say this with Garfield and with man, the names escape me. See, there's so many Spider-Mans over the years, I can't even remember all the names. But with
Tobey
the last,
Maguire,
yeah, Tobey
Garfield.
Maguire, Garfield, and then with Holland coming in and breathing new life to that, it honestly made Spider-Man more exciting on screen. But even as a comic book reader and collector, I don't even pick up the Spider-Man comic books for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Venom collector, and and Spider-Man is an integral part of Venom. There's no Venom without Spider-Man, right? And so, like, you think about that him saying that he's going to retire from playing that. It sounds so weird because you would think that, like, as soon as you found, like, in my mind, as soon as I found a character that was me, and I was that character, and I embodied that character, I would just sit back and be like, okay, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life, and be chill.
You, me, and probably everybody watching in the chat, yeah. But actors, I think, have to fight really hard to prevent from being typecast into the same role constantly for their entire lives or careers.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. He does. You've seen some of the other roles that he's played, and I think it starts off amazing, and they're like, okay, I want to target. I want to do something different.
Yeah, Sith, we did grab that pop. We're going to be posting on it. Like I said, last couple of weeks been kind of rough, but we're going to get back into content creation. Kicking it off tonight. I know next Tuesday is actually the holiday, so we'll figure out Comics News Weekly next week. As we keep going in the chat, there's Zuni with the $5 super chat. Zuni, thank you, because it's a good reminder for the mission of 2023 is that of the comic community. All ad revenue, all monetization, everything that the channel earns goes back into the community and the drawing and giveaway of slabs later. Back to the point or the topic being discussed, Ryan, is like, so Toby's talking about potentially not coming back unless that fourth script or that fourth film is going to be better than the third. How does he not? That's like you're turning down a multi-million-dollar payday for something that you know very well that's potentially near and dear to his heart and could be a good send-off. But there's a moniker, there's some kind of adage with actors in the industry saying that something about the fourth film doesn't always hit right, doesn't always hit well. So unless it's going to be done really well, he doesn't want to come back for it.
Well, yeah, because if you look at, so it's always a scare, even for a fan, because you're like, this is great. When is it going to crater? I mean, it's like it continues every film that seems to come out. Very rarely is the next film better than the previous film, and so on and so forth. It's like, again, they come out with the big old gusto, and then it's like they blow their wall right at that first one, and then it's like, okay, the girls are giving them time, okay, whatever. But then it's like, they let you go again. But the third, fourth time in one night, that's a lot. You're asking for a lot.
Yeah, Marvel seems bound and determined to tank their comic business. It's hard to believe that they can honestly be out of touch. They keep doubling down on things that don't work. See, this is a great point that I kind of wanted to segue to in the talk of Peter Parker Spider-Man retiring or Marvel retiring that character and Tobey Maguire not coming back. I still highly doubt that Marvel would ever stop printing Spider-Man, Peter Parker based Spider-Man comic books. It's too much. There's too much of a reader base out there for Peter Parker. I think the fan base that watches the movies and the fan base that reads the Spider-Man comic books isn't necessarily the same fan base. Now, the fans that buy the Spider-Man comic books will go watch the movies, sure, but not every fan of Peter Parker on the big screen is going to go and read the comic books.
Well, there's a lot of Spider-Man out there, though. I mean, he's such a popular character. You just know never thirsty for Spider-Man. He's everywhere. You can get him in all types of shapes, forms, and sizes. I think that the Spider-Man 2099 is a good idea, and I like that one too. And I feel like that could be another version that you could kind of. But still, it's Spider-Man, But I guess who's that? That's Ben Reilly. Is that who's 2099? He's got kind of an edge to him, though. But there's tons of there's no lack of Spider-Man stuff out there.
No.
I mean, they're making the new Spider-Man game, but like I said, even with that, they're changing stories, so they're getting the same characters that have a story, and they're just like, okay, let's get these same characters and redo their makeup and where they come from. I went on my soapbox about Venom and how that really freaking annoys me that they changing his storyline on a freaking game. But I mean, I guess they're just, it's weird. It's like I don't understand why it's so difficult. How is it so difficult to come out with fresh ideas and stuff? I mean, I guess you grew up reading them and you just try to stay in the same vein. Would it have to be someone that's like never read comics before and they used to do like mysteries and they're like, I'm gonna start writing comics to get fresh ideas in? It's so weird,
So there are ideas coming in, but necessarily the focal point has not been on those ideas for years. And I hope Marvel doesn't fall for the same traps that DC has over the years. What do we talk about, honestly, every week when it comes to new comic book day and a lot of other things? It's DC is Batman heavy. It's a lot of Batman. It's a lot of the same. At some point, I mean, maybe down here, Ryan says Eddie couldn't retire, Ben couldn't retire, Miles hasn't, Spider-Boy won't. Maybe it's not necessarily the idea of retiring, and maybe they shouldn't even look at retiring because we're just utilizing what we're finding in news articles and what we're seeing and reading, and retire might not be the right word. The passing of the guard, whereas the focal point just gets shifted to Miles. There's an article in here that says it's more likely to see a live action Miles Morales in the MCU than it is to see the Spider-Man 4 film. There was somebody making that debate and that argument in an article. And you think about it, like, yeah, if you put those ponies on a track and start racing, there's a chance that Miles could be on the screen again before we see Toby again in the fourth installment of the film.
Yeah, I mean they're making bringing back the old Spider-Man, that has brought some nostalgia back, and that has brought a little bit of excitement. I would like to see that, and what they very well could. I don't know, and then also you got to think that this is Sony's biggest IP as far as it comes to movies, and that's the thing is that they're not going to go and send him into multiverse, and it's like he got lost in multiverse and he's gone for 10 years. You don't hear from Spider-Man because don't they have to make a movie every so often, or they lose the franchise, or they lose the IP if they don't make a movie every so often anyways?
Damn, dude, that's a good question. I think you're right. Like, they have to do something with an IP to a degree without, like, they can't just sit on it like a pawn off the side. I don't think before they lose rights, because that's kind of the game that they play. A lot of creators or a lot of businesses or companies that own these intellectual properties, they trade them and sell them like a pawn game back and forth. And it's more or less to prevent somebody else from using it a lot of times. Hence why indie comic spec takes off for a hot minute, and then a couple of years it dies completely down because a new batch of people realize, well, what's going on is they're just playing the pawn game. Is the thumbnail really clickbait? I don't feel like it. I wanted to draw people in to be a part of this debate or part of this discussion of whether or not Marvel's gonna retire or pass the guard, because you can't just end. People don't die and end and go away in the comic book universe. It's just not. I mean, MCU's released, or that's just not a thing anymore.
But if they were just to send Spider-Man off into a multiverse, and then you didn't see him for 5 or 10 years, when he came back, because if you think about Star Wars, there was a long break for Star Wars. It was almost like Star Wars was done for a long time before they started making the I guess, like, after, you're the Star Wars guy, so when you think about those older films that they did, wasn't there like a span of like almost 8 or 9 years where they didn't have any Star Wars movies?
I'm sure you're right, somewhere in there. I don't know where.
It was like, Yeah, because they had like Return of the Jedi, and then they had Empire Strikes. They had all those, and then it was like I remember thinking like Star Wars was still a thing, and it was still around, but there was never no movies that were hitting the big screen for a long time. And then I remember when there was a new Star Wars movie, unless I was just out of touch up to it. I remember thinking like, man, I haven't seen Star Wars in forever. I'd love to see a Star Wars movie, and it was like the thirst was there. But I don't know if they would do that with.
Well, I think is also the ownership of Star Wars is vastly different than how things are owned today as far as intellectual property. You know what I mean? By wasn't George Lucas the sole owner of the Star Wars intellectual property from that point until he sold it to Disney?
I think you're dropping frames.
Do what?
Are you dropping frames, or is that my internet here?
It could be our power on. We've had power issues the last week or so, because there was Star Wars Episode 1 in 1999. But of course, it doesn't bring up the older movies for some reason.
Anyway,
so you've got from what the mid to late 80s for the last film.
Yeah, So there was like what it was
so
like.
You got an 8 to 12 year window where nothing happened. So it's probably the difference in how that intellectual property was owned versus now.
But that gap, like kind of like it thinned out the crowd, and the amount of saturation within the community wasn't there. And so when they came back, I mean, you think about those films when they came back. I mean, people were lining up for days to get tickets to the first one,
or the merchandising and everything that was happening.
It was so exciting, but they took that break, and maybe you need to do that.
There's a phrase, there's an adage, there's an old adage, absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? So yeah, it's not necessarily about trying to be clickbaity about about Spider-Man retiring. It's that if they're kind of talking about that on the news articles, we know as collectors that they're never going to get rid of Peter Parker. But this does seem like the stars were kind of aligned to be a good opportunity to kind of pass the torch. In my opinion, make Peter Parker a secondary or a tertiary character in the other areas of the Marvel universe. Yeah, absence makes the heart grow fonder, and pass that torch on to Miles.
That's maybe something that's one of the things that maybe Marvel can even watch is like there's a big IP that's about to come out that everyone's super excited about, and it could allow for other things to kind of rest and take a break for a little bit because with X-Men there's so much story with X-Men that could be told, and mutants that man that's going to take precedence over on. It's going to take center stage for a while, and that would be a great opportunity to let everything kind of chill and die off, so that the fervor for wanting to have that back kind of grows.
And we'll get back into the comments here too as we kind of stick with this. The MCU and comics keep trying to write books for audiences that don't exist at the expense of their actual audiences. And this is I think that there's more truth to this than a lot of us realize, because more people will go and watch the movies and be fans of that character, that actor in the movies, yet they don't turn around and buy the comic books, right? They're not, the comic book readers will watch the movies, but the movie watchers won't always come back and read the comic books. So they're writing books for audiences that don't exist. I think the audiences exist. I just don't think they're interested in reading comic books in the same way and fashion that we do. Buying new comics on New Comic Book Day on Wednesday isn't exciting for the vast majority of people out there that are young and interested in superheroes and a lot of this. That newer audience, you go to any shop on a Wednesday, how many of those people buying books on a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday are under the age of 20? Almost none.
No. Yeah, and in the mornings when when I remember going to the shop, and you had to, like, in the morning, this is a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, you had to be there early. You had to get there 2-3 hours before the shop opened. There was rules. You had to have your chair out there. If you're not there, if you took a spot or went to take a pee and you came back, you lost your spot to get that first spot in line. Nowadays, I've been early. I'm like, I gotta get there early because I want to get my ratio variant or whatever it is, and I'm the only one there.
So
Usually.
this is an interesting impasse to be at. The number of people going to New Comic Book Day Wednesdays or Thursdays or Fridays or whatever to pick up the Spider-Man books or Marvel books or DC books or any of them, how many of them are under 20? Almost none. Yet they'll go to all of the movies or the most of them. You know what I mean? You'll see them and their families, these younger individuals. It's like, I'm still a young individual. I won't classify myself as an old guy, but you know where I'm at. When I go to Wednesdays to pick up my books, there's very few. I wish you could almost do like a census tally of like your local comic book community to find out where that younger audience is going. They're not going for comic books like Three Rivers is saying, but they'll go see the movies. And the people controlling and owning this intellectual property will have the ability to make more money at a faster rate off of a movie than they will over an ongoing comic book series over 10 or 20 years.
Well, just if you think about it, they don't have to get the comics anymore to know what's going on because they have YouTube to go to and they can find the channel they want to watch to keep updated about the comic book that they would buy if they were going to buy them, but they don't have to because someone buys them and gives them content right on YouTube that tells them exactly what's going on with the story without them having to buy it.
You bring up a very, very interesting point, a dichotomy or whatever, a section within how we absorb content that didn't exist 15, 20 years ago. Content creators, yes. You and I will read books. We'll talk about them later. We're talking about some of these news articles and topics because not everybody out there in the comic book community has time to read all the articles and stay abreast of the situation, if you will. We're doing it because we find it fun to sit here and talk about it later and then interact with everybody else in the chat. So this is a form of content creation, much like the comic books. These people aren't going to go read the news articles.
Yeah. I mean, they're like, these comic books come out, they know they can go boom and catch an update on exactly what whatever book came out that they need to. They can find a channel for it. And if they don't, then they'll make one.
That's why I think some of those channels have gotten so big. There's one comic historian or comic
Bryan, where they kind of read it out almost.
Well, not only that, but he deep dives into the lore and explains a lot of the stuff. So fans that don't have a 10-year history or a 20-year history with the intellectual property or with the characters, they can enjoy that content and learn more without having to, read 400 comic books or.
Well, there's that one guy. It's not comic historian, but it's what's his name?
You know what I'm thinking of, and what you and I are talking about.
Glasses and he's a bigger guy. He knows his history, and I go and watch his things just so I can make sure that I'm not missing any pieces or whatnot because he's got really good content. In fact, they just started a newer Marvel thing, and it's him and teamed up with a couple other folks, and they're dissecting like more integral parts to characters now, like going really into his deep history stuff.
This is a fantastic comment from Cosmic One. Welcome back, man. Peter Parker has a more tragic story to tell than other incarnations of Spider-Man. I agree wholeheartedly, and I don't understand why they're not writing it. We're not dipping into it more often. Hear me out. He says, Bat Boy. Josh, good to see you, man. So many great people in the chat stopping in. Thanks for welcoming us back after a 2-week bit of a hiatus with conventions and some traveling. And I know, Ryan, you weren't feeling so hot last week, and McClay was out.
Wasp bit me.
You got bit by a wasp. That's terrible, man.
Stung by a wasp. Yeah, but man, my hand was was so fat that it was almost the skin felt like it was gonna split on the top. I guess I had an allergic reaction. I had never had that before, but it was gnarly. And
dude, Three Rivers with this cycle. This is very interesting too. You read till you're about 12, then drop until you hit your 30s. What I'm not seeing though is the people, the kids that are in that 6, 7, 8 age range to 12. I don't see any of them buying new comic books on the regular.
Yeah, but they have to go with mom and dad. And that's school time. Now, what does summer look like? I don't know. How many kids are going with mom and dad to the comic book shop or asking to go to the comic shop for summer? Because that's good, and I think too, comics nowadays are so more adult than they used to be, than they originally were, that parents are probably a little bit like leery to just let them have a free for all at the comic book store, because they know that they could end up possibly pulling the comic book that has a more adult content in it than they would expect to have it.
Yeah, if you let you
run free for all in a comic book store anymore.
Yeah, if you let your kid go on a free for all, they could run into that. But if anybody, like I, being a parent, would bring my child, I wouldn't let them go free for all, because there's a whole indie section and a whole section of books that are quite risque that I don't want to wait till he's older for that.
I take my little one. He'll be 4 in December, and we go to the shop, and there's like all kinds of like statues and stuff like that up there, and I'm like, he's like, Dad, what's that? And I'm like, oh, no, don't look at that. That's too much for me to get into with you right now. And it's just like it's not necessarily anything like, it's just like the grotesqueness of some of the figures, the monsters and stuff like that. They're very detailed, and it's just like, it's a little much for a 4-year-old. But a comic book store used to be like a safe haven. You could drop your kid off there and be totally cool that nothing's going to be like alarming. Nowadays, it's got a little more adults, because there's more adults in the hobby than there are younger kids, I believe.
Yeah.
Now, my kid, he has like this little tablet though, and it comes with all these Marvel games and different Marvel stuff that he can do in there, which is really cool to see all this little stuff. And I think there's one that even tells like a little story. It's like Stan Lee talking, and he can like watch a little story about Peter Parker and this and that. And those are pretty cool. But you got to watch it sometimes.
Yeah, I guess we have to give our society and ourselves as human beings a little bit more credit too, that we age and mature as a society as well. I mean, you think about Europe and what's happening in Europe is off the chain compared to the United States when it comes to maturity with young adults and children. But they're mature about it, if you will. Maybe it's just because we're all a bunch of kids at heart that we giggle and laugh at some of the stuff we shouldn't. Either way, I'm with you. There was some risque stuff happening in the 90s too when I was a kid, when Image was coming out. But in the same fashion, things are, you've got poly bags and covers to protect kids from stuff on the newsstand too.
Yeah. And I'm not so much like saying like I think that McClay in some of his other conversations, he's discussed how some of the risque covers are out there. But I don't really see those in comic book shops. It's more or less the horrific or the horror type stuff that you have to kind of sometimes, and they don't really cover those up because there's an art view, and there's a comic book reader for everything, and it just really depends on your family if that's something you like, and nothing. It's just preferences is all it is.
Yeah.
I mean, Venom is about as aggressive as it gets. For my kids, whatever, but I mean, he knows they know who Venom is and stuff like that too.
I'm agreeing with Three Rivers here, and I'm curious if anybody has a counterpoint or a debate to this a bit. But we're seeing a real lack of writing talent in movies and comics. I think that's like, if you do an assessment of everything that's going on with movies and comic books, everything kind of leads back to where we're at from a writing standpoint, and I kind of compare it to network television. When you're growing up, what was the best thing to watch in the 90s and the 2000s? It was all the good stuff was on HBO. It was in the movie theater. It was other places. Network television was like pumping out content on a weekly or daily soap opera like basis, to the point where it gets watered down in the writing. Nothing really feels that substantial or great. And maybe that's with Three Rivers. I think the talent is out there. I just don't feel like people are being pushed enough to create at a higher level than what we've seen in the past.
Well, the same thing as we said with even music. I mean, the music that's coming out nowadays. I mean, and I'm not to get off my yard.
Get off my lawn. That's for my.
That's not what I'm about, because you hear that, because I listen to or I'm a metal, and so that's pretty much what I listen to. But I kind of try to tune in what's being played, because my wife, she's of the average normal people who listen to whatever's on the radio, and they just Walking Zombie are just programmed with whatever they're listening to on the radio, and they're force fed all this stuff, and they're programmed, but I'm brainwashed. But but the writing music is there's no diversity in music. Like the music is very much bland, and people are so scared, it seems like, to to do something original because it's outside the box, that they won't be accepted. Like I think we had this conversation too, that it seems like it used to be and when I was growing up, the different things were cool. To be different, to the new things, the new kind of off things were cool. Nowadays, if you're off, that's not really cool. You want to be with the same thing with everyone else is around and everyone else is doing. You don't want the off guy or the different thing is not cool.
Yeah. Joshua, I think, sheds some light on a very, very real thing that a lot of people probably think but don't really talk about much. Big publishers, it isn't shaped by the fact that creatives don't want to give their best ideas to a corporation when they could bounce to Image or Boom. Where are the incentives for the writers and the creators of Marvel and DC to do better, create better, and be longer? It's deadlines, and we hear on the regular how much people suffer for the love of creating comic books. Nobody's getting rich off of comic books. You got Jim Lee, you got a Rob Liefeld, you got a couple of the original guys out of the 90s that created Image and broke off and did something, and they worked really hard for that. I'm not saying people aren't working hard, but in the same fashion, yeah, where's the motivation to drop that intellectual property and create it and have it be the next big thing with Marvel or DC if they're not going to be taken care of by the publisher?
Yeah,
dude, that's kind of a pill. That's a, what do you call that? A reality pill? Or no, that's a tough pill to swallow, so to speak. If I were a writer, or not a writer, but hold on, my brain's trying to switch gears when I don't want it to switch gears. But exactly, anybody in their career, where's the incentive for you to do better if your company's not going to take care of you?
Well, I thought that was the thing with Substack. Wasn't Substack supposed to be like almost like an arena where the comic creator, writer, artist could be able to have a place for their content, it was their idea, and that they would basically kind of, it was almost like being like, when you were in music, you wanted to be on a label, but then you had your independent labels would allow you to kind of dictate what those rules were. And I felt like Substack was something very similar, but I haven't heard much.
It's too niche. It's just too niche. It's the greater audience that they want to reach, or that they should be reaching with content and with comic books and new characters and great things. Substack is too niche. The greater population that would be interested in these characters, it's too much work for them to go to Substack to subscribe, to be what they've created with Substack is a place for ultra fans to go to and get first access to a lot of this stuff.
How popular though? Has it died off in popularity since it came out?
Yeah, I don't hear anybody talking. In my opinion, I think it's died off in popularity severely. It doesn't mean it's not working for them and how it's being used. It's a feed. It's a news feed for content creators out there to target directly to the audience that wants to hear their message.
The biggest problem probably with them was that they had a fee right off the bat. There was some kind of fee or some type of fee structure around it. And if you think about stuff that kind of pops off nowadays, there's not a fee structure around it. And then later on, it's after it's ingrained in a community, it's ingrained. Like
most of Substack you can get free access to, but then there's paid tiered levels of access based on the content creators. Like I know Bryan K. Vaughan, the Substack of his that I'm part of, that was a yearly founder's donation at the very beginning when he first kicked it off. But he sent out, I've got a written script of Saga signed and numbered by him. I got a copy of Saga signed by him. I mean, they give you value for what you're giving them for support and being a part of that. But I'll be honest with you, it's been at least a year since I've even logged on and read Substack. I read Bryan K. Vaughan's articles through my email in the email form.
Yeah, it just didn't. And it's also because you could get everything you wanted without having to go to that. And like you said, you had to be a super fan for whatever it was. Because I almost did the Donna Cates thing, and I don't even have no idea what's going on with that nowadays. But it's when it's not being pushed by by publishers and whatnot, they're definitely were not going to try to help support that or being pushed in comic book shops or anything like that. It just dies off.
Yeah, this is interesting. Best description of the current situation. Every comic reader is a part speculator, but no speculator is a comic book reader. Speculators leave, cause market tanks, and you have this decline. I guess it depends on it depends on how you define speculation, because digging through a dollar bin is a form of speculation as well.
Every comic reader is a part speculator, but no speculator is a comic book reader. No speculator is a comic reader. Speculators leave because market tanks.
You can see it in the market with all of the influx of money during COVID, all the people that were coming in and seeing that, hey, comic book values are rising, and historically comic book values don't tend to decline sharply unless you get into the situation that we saw with COVID, and then values decline because the money's not being pumped into the market. So that's a one-off situation where the market was being flooded with money and people had all this extra money to buy in, create businesses, get into their fandoms, and then they're getting in at the high end of the market. Now people are withdrawing. So yeah, speculators are leaving because the market tanks is what he's saying. Well, depends on how you define speculation to a degree. If you're in it just for the money and you're buying books just to flip them, then yeah, those people are out because the values are down.
Well, so if it's not a news flash, everything that deals with collectibles and things that you can do on the internet because you're locked at home and had no place to go has died down.
But
even cards, all this.
I'm with Three Rivers. The comic market is strong, just values are down. If I said the comic market isn't strong, I misspoke. Values of comic books are still higher than they were 3, 4, 5 years ago. They're just not as high as they were when the market was being pumped full of cash.
I agree with that 1,000% for sure. And I mean, people have moved on to other things. Like you said, it was during the COVID. It's so many weird things that happened from that time, and it's kind of crazy. But it's kind of leveled out now, and which is a good thing because I think this will allow you see who the true people have passion around it are sticking around, because it's the trouble that you have or the uncomfortable or whatever you're trying to do. It doesn't matter because you enjoy it so much. The guy who's just speculating, who's just trying to make a buck, it's not worth it to him because it's just too much trouble to go there early in the morning.
Well, one thing I realized a long time ago is it's a shell game. If you're in it just for the money and you buy books to flip them, you have that money. But what do you got to do with that money? You got to buy more books.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shell game. You're constantly it's like take that cup game, that 3-cup game, put your money in it, move it around, pull it up, find your money, put it under a different cup. So the idea of having a comic book business, unless you're a brick and mortar LCS with back issues and a lot of other stuff, the idea of this new generation and we're segueing off of our initial topic, and we'll get to this in a little bit more in a second. The idea of like a new age comic book store that's not a brick and mortar, that a guy like me that kind of works out of his house realized pretty early that you're chasing your tail and it's not worth it. You kind of buy books. You're like, okay, here's the 10% that I wanted to keep from my collection out of this collection that I had to buy the whole collection to make it worth my time. Now I've got this other 90% that I got to move. Well, if I move that and take this money and put it into other books to sell, so the idea of creating that business, you're constantly chasing more books. That's the one thing. The people that I saw that went full time over the last 3 years, bless their hearts, are working their asses off, and they're awesome people. They're some of my best friends, but they're constantly chasing books. And I'll leave that at that. To chase books isn't fun. But to segue off of the Miles thing, anybody in the live chat that wants to leave a comment down below after this is done going live, please do. Anybody watching this on the replay, please leave a comment on your opinions and your thoughts on Marvel retiring / or passing the torch, whatever moniker or whatever definition you want to utilize for this. Seems like the planets are coming together over the next couple of years to really pass that torch and the passing of the guard onto, which is what everybody's talking about, is Miles Morales. Miles Morales coming to the forefront and playing that long game with the next full-on Spider-Man, and seeing that MCU appearance, potentially live appearance. But segueing into the final, just the two topics tonight, because obviously we run long on the first one. We're probably going to run long on the second one a little bit, is the market and how the market is trending with the sales of raw comic books versus graded comic books. And I really want to pick your brain on this, Ryan, because I was just recently at Heroes Con and I saw, for instance, I'll use this because I picked this up at Heroes Con. Darth Vader 3. I'm going to use this as an example of the difference of graded comic books and raw comic book sales right now. Darth Vader 3 CGC 9.8. I picked this up for right at GPA right now. GPA market about $200 cash. There were raw copies of the book that were selling for almost close to that were being asked on that. I shouldn't say the word selling. There were vendors asking close to $200 for high grade raw copies of the book. I saw more people buying raw comic books in one convention than I have ever seen before. Comics for Cheap is a guy on Instagram that we've known has been around for a few years. I think Thursday I saw footage or content of him rolling out a cart with like 12 long boxes that he bought from the convention. Now, obviously, he's a full-time retailer, full-time seller, so he's chasing more of those books. But my question and the idea that I want to pose to you, Ryan, and the people in the chat is the market shying away from graded comic books to a degree? Because we've noticed that prices are down. Is it not worth the time and the investment? Is the comic book community just focusing more on raw books and paying more for those high-grade raw books?
I think, the thing with I think because that graded comic books is such a subjectable thing, people put a lot of money into it and put a lot of they put a lot of money into it, and they put a lot of support and faith that looked like the next progression of the way things were going to go. And they were, sorry, my dogs somehow rolled in here now. But
I imagine him chewing at your ankle while you're sitting there talking live.
They're just going crazy over here. But so the thing is that, and this is kind of the reason why I've even cooled off on comics just a little bit, because I got burned, and it got burned on one of my favorite books in my whole entire collection. And so, and if I didn't go into the story, I'm a big fan. ASM 300 is my grail. It's my favorite book that I ever got. The way I got it was cool. I bought it raw. And hold on a second. I gotta get some out here.
Yeah, I got you, bro. I got you. I'll catch up with some of these comments as that dog murders a pair of shoes back there. That's hilarious. They just got a new puppy and it's hilarious. It's
man, I tell you. Sorry.
So there's this comment I really wanted to hit and forgot about. Drooling over the 90s Wildstorm swimsuit issues. Yes, and I had several copies, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about graded versus raw. The last Heritage auction sold $21 million of back issues. Comic book market is strong. Yeah, and then where are we at with the graded books? We saw some of these prices still kind of trending downward on some books, and maybe it's some of its timing, maybe some of its availability.
So again, like with I had an ASM 300. I got it raw. I sent it off, and it came back in 9.4. And I was just so enamored that it was a 9.4. I remember looking at it and thinking, like, the guy who pressed it and the guy, we both looked at it like, I can't believe it came back in 9.4. It was very thankful it came back in 9.4. He told me, whatever you do, never get this thing, you never crack it. And I was like, well, why? And he's like, because you might not ever get that grade again. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, that's weird. If it's a 9.4, it's a 9.4. Why would that make a difference? Fast forward, Todd McFarlane's in town at CGC, and a chance to get it signed by Michelini. Man, do I really want to do that? My buddy said, don't ever crack it, but it's a 9.4. It's coming from CGC. CGC is the one that graded it. I'll take the risk. Maybe I get a 9.2. Send it off, come back, 8.5. Freaking wanted to blow my face off. I went from a 9.4 to 8.5. That's freaking crazy to me. Like, and it's the same. So they didn't live to their product. They graded it. They cracked it. They did everything to this, and it came back different.
I think you got did wrong by Uncle Todd, because Todd does manhandle books, man.
Granted, but that's a huge drop. Now, so I only say that because it's like there's so many discrepancies like that when it comes to graded books. There's so many discrepancies. Either they're overgraded or undergraded or graded too hard or whatever it is, that I think people are like, why am I paying this money to get these things graded, to get it to get it a correct grade on it, and they're still screwed up. They're not. There's no consistency.
I'm not advocating stop grading books. I'm not advocating
I'm not
one
saying that
avenue or the other. I do want to touch bases on a couple of things. I want to help you, and I both want to help empower people to do what they feel is right for themselves and for their collections. That's what's best about this hobby, right? But what I will say is CGC, CBS, and other grading companies have stepped off the beaten path and have made egregious errors over the last several years that really have people questioning their faith in the graded comic process. Part of that is Heineken down here. Jones, thanks for being a part of the chat tonight. Let's be real. If you're paying $9.8 fair market value for raw books, you're done, plain and simple. Leading that right into Parker, some books slabbed, new spec books, just get minimum premium over raw. And I think that's part of it. I don't think that people are paying a premium for the raw books close to fair market value. I think that the grading companies over the last several years have just devalued their relationship with the larger collecting community as a whole, to the point that people aren't putting the same value in graded comic books as they have in the past. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't go get your books graded. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get a fair service. It just means like take CBCS, for example, and the hundreds of books they sent off site to get graded that got lost. That's a big egregious error that they're going to have to overcome. It's going to take years for them to overcome with certain collectors and win their business back. Look at things that have happened with CGC with Chicago last year and the back and forth and the deciding of that indecisiveness from a company that's certified guaranteed company. That just indecisiveness has shaken people's foundations of belief in the grading of comic books and the services that are receiving.
I go back and we had this idea, and I still think this is an idea that could possibly correct this. And the reason why that there's so many discrepancies is because there is no, the rules that are in place are not governed, and it's really decided by the company. It's either CGC or CBCS or whatever company you're using the grade. They're deciding, they're critiquing, or they're spot checking their own place. If there was a company that would say that they're going to come by and they're going to look at their processes and see what discrepancies they find, and then rate your company according to discrepancies, that would help sure up that they're doing the right thing and they're trying to live by one book of law.
Yeah, some amount of transparency is going to help out and rebuild the credibility with certain collectors over the next coming years with these companies, for sure. I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's no transparency in the grading process, to my knowledge, on how they grade books, on how books are graded. And there's inconsistencies within the grading process because we send books that are exactly this. Like, I'm not a professional grader, but if I have two books that are exactly the same and they don't come back the same grade, then obviously there's a bit of an inconsistency with the grading. I will add transparency to the fact, though, that I have books at CGC. I am getting books graded with CGC. I have changed my views and my opinions slightly on, I'm not sending out hundreds of books to get graded. Like I'm not flipping, I'm not selling books on the regular. I have a small short box account to try to fund some of the giveaways and stuff that I have going on here. So transparency there is, I am still getting books graded. Don't get me wrong. I'm still using CGC. I'm still working on jumping off of that diving board, so to speak, with CBCS, just for that experience. In the same fashion, I was a much larger fan of CGC a few years ago. Yeah. Now, after the years, after being exposed to seeing what other people have coped with and what's going on, it's like I have questions, and a lot of people have questions, but in the same fashion, some of it's customer care, some of it's quality. The quality has been a big issue over the years with CGC the last 2 or 3 years. The quality with CGC cases is up. And this is also one of those things we talk about, graded books versus raw book in those sales. People still talk about CBCS catching up to CGC in the valuation of books, like the sales, like the asking prices for CBCS books versus CGC. But just this past week, at the Heritage Auction. Was it the Heritage Auction? I think it was the Heritage Auction where two Dejurvec variants of Ultimate Fallout 4 went up, one to CGC 9.8 and one to CBCS 9.8. The CBCS 9.8 sold for $10,000 less than the CGC.
That's because whoever's probably buying it probably doesn't know the difference. And that CBC, if you want a good grade, you would send it to CGC.
Well, you know what that CBCS that CBCS buyer immediately cracking that book and sending it out to CGC. But right now, I bet you.
If you wanted a good grade, in my opinion, if you want a good grade, you send it to CGC. If you want the right grade, you send it to CBCS. That was just my opinion. I think that there needs to be at a bank. I know this dog did not rip that cord. In a bank, you have to have an auditor that goes through. That's a third person that's going through to make sure things are done correctly, and they audit you and they tell what's going on, if things are right or where you're making errors at. And I think there has to be an audit in these companies. And I don't know if an independent auditor would help shore up the people's faith in the product. I've always gotten books graded because of the preservation of it. I want to get books because I plan to pass my stuff down. I got back into comics for the main reason was because I was having a little boy named Riker. That was the main reason. And my idea was when my wife, I came home one day, I hadn't been doing comics, came home with a bag from the local comic shop that we had just moved to. We moved to this new house. There was a comic shop. I went and checked it out, came back, had a bag. She's like, "What's in the bag?" I said, "Comics." She said, "Why'd you buy comics?" I said, "Nostalgia purposes." She said, "Do you think your kids are going to want to read them?" I said, "If we ever have any." And she said, "You have one on the way now." So that's how I found out. And that's why I started collecting again. And so from that point on, I was like, I want to preserve these. So I found out about grading and I sent them off to get preserved. And there started being a monetary value in it as well. I started learning, that you can get more because they were quote unquote there. That this is a 9.8, but if you get back a 9.8, the problem is nowadays that you don't know if you're getting back a 9.8. It's as long as it's inside that case, it's a 9.8.
I'll admit this wholeheartedly, coming from where I come from too. I will own up to the fact that their education plays a big role in this. I guarantee you that there's a chunk of people out there that are saying, "Hey, this 9.8 is 9.8. There's a spine tick on here." Don't understand that 9.8s can have issues. 9.8s are a 9.8s because they're not a 10.0. There's an education gap within the grading of comic books because there's no transparency on how comic books are graded. Now we've got the Overstreet price guide, Overstreet guide to grading comic books. We can educate ourselves. But I was there at 1.2 where I'm like, this isn't a 9.8. I see something wrong with the book. Well, there's that aspect. And anybody that sits here and tells you that they know better than another person, they better have 30, 40 years in the industry to back it up and grading all this other jazz. But I'll own that as I lived that too, where I wasn't very well educated. I'm more educated now going into this. But I think, rounding back to what you were saying, is in my opinion, to share off of what you said, is the best thing that any comic book grading company can do right now is to work at their level of quality and the relationship with the collecting community and comic book readers as a whole, and step off of that and be a part of the community.
Yeah,
and
the worst.
Part of that is what CGC has done with Hot Shot Comics recently. If you guys haven't seen the news, part of this comment or this conversation is talking about, we can kind of lead into Hot Shot Comics was one of those companies that would do a lot of pre-sales and send a lot of books to CGC. They banned their account. They're working with people, attempting to work with people that had books pre-ordered through Hot Shot Comics to try to come to a resolution, because Hot Shot Comics is taking money and not delivering books and has been for quite some time, to the point where CGC is actually banning their account or closing their account or red taping it, whatever you want to call it. That's on the CGC forums as of yesterday or tonight or today or something like that. So that's one avenue, building, working with the community and helping to safeguard the community, because let's be honest, graded comic books, one of the biggest reasons why graded comic books are a thing and we're starting off in the beginning is because of the simple fact, like you said, you're supposed to be getting a guaranteed grade when you grade that book. And how many of us got into it because we were worried about being able to detect restoration? is this comic book supposed to be what the seller says it's supposed to be? Especially with Golden Age and Silver Age. I dipped my toes into Golden Age graded books for the first time. I've had some Golden Age books ungraded, but I dipped into Golden Age Marine Corps books at HeroesCon, and I bought a graded copy because I don't have the education to ascertain whether a Golden Age book has been restored or not. And some people are like, yeah, just buy it and read it. Buy that copy of the back issue bin and read it. That's great. But those back issue Golden Age books can run hundreds of dollars, and prices are down on graded books right now. I bought this for the same price as some Golden Age raw books in the back issue bins. So don't forget that graded comic books exist as a thing, because some of us as collectors don't have the knowledge or the ability to detect restoration, and we want to make sure that I'm getting a book that's not restored. I might even crack this out of this slab and keep it raw like this. I got it at such a good deal.
Well, I think people are buying. I think that the raw. I think I remember people saying that they felt like it was a fad, and that there would be a time when they would kind of catch up. And I don't know if it'll ever be like even that a 9.8. But if you think about it, if you looked at a brand new modern Venom book that's off the shelf and one that's a 9.8. And you should be able to see a 9.8. The raw 9.8 should be able to garner as much money as the graded 9.8, because all that means is that it's a guaranteed 9.8, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the basically the cost of grading, shipping, receipt, just the inherent cost of grading a book. Let's just call it $50.
The cost of grading a book does not guarantee. That's the cost to guarantee that it's a 9.8.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is if you're buying a 9.8 of a book, that $45, $50 price tag of what it costs to grade a book essentially is what those graded copies potentially should be going for above the raw books. That's what we're leading as. We're kind of in the market right now. Is I'm buying graded books that are just at that cost level above basically the cost to grade it. That's all I'm paying for the books now. That premium is eroding away. That premium that you used to see over the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, where you could buy a book for $30 and turn around and get a 9.8 and it'd be worth $700 or $800. That's gone on a lot of the books that over the last couple of years that we saw. There are still books out there. There are still blue chip books in the Golden and Silver Age that you're still going to see. Like there's still modern books, ASM 300, like what you're saying, where the valuation of it's there, but it's smaller than it was in the last years. You're not seeing those big giant gaps, is what we're saying.
Yeah, essentially the difference in the price should be just the cost to get the book preserved.
And hence, that's where I'm kind of using this Darth Vader 3 as an example tonight. I paid $200 for this graded CGC 9.8. Vendors, retailers at the convention were asking between $100 and $175 for high grade raw copies. Now, $100 may not have been as high grade as what a 9.8 was, but I saw vendors asking $150, $175. A couple I saw $100 to $125. So at $200 fair market value for a CGC 9.8 on the recent sales for GPA, that's essentially like I bought the book raw and then just paid to grade it. But the work's already done. The work's already done. So that's why I'm still a collector of graded books, especially Star Wars stuff. But we're seeing a trend. Can we agree that we're seeing a trend? You and I feel like we can agree that we're seeing a trend. Absolutely. And all of the other YouTube channels have talked about this for weeks. I'm recognizing it and seeing it firsthand in person at HeroesCon and some other avenues in my life where it's finally kind of catching up, or my life's finally catching up to the trends and seeing this. And it is not surprising, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's definitely they're just getting closer. The variance of pricing is definitely eroding away, and it's more of us now. You're paying for that preservation if that's what you want. You want to get to 9.8, or you want to grade 9.8 that's going to be preserved 9.8 without any worries about your kid or your dog peeing on or something like that.
And I attribute a lot of this to the collecting community as a whole becoming smarter, because we're helping to educate each other. We're shoring things up in the areas that I'm not smart with. I'm watching other YouTube channels and I'm learning from them. You're teaching me about things, Ryan. People in the chat are teaching me about things. This is why I always want to be a part. I want to have my YouTube channel up and running and do stuff weekly because I learn stuff weekly from the community. And I feel like because of the availability of content, short form and long form, on mobile devices, TikTok, IG, YouTube, Twitch, everything out there, I think the younger audience that are getting into comic book collecting are much smarter than I was when I got into comic book collecting in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, when I was collecting through that range. I didn't have to live. I had to live and learn through trial and tribulation and make mistakes, whereas a lot of comic book collectors now have everything at their fingertips and they're a much smarter collector than they ever have been.
Yeah, I mean, you have like, you know, the app that the key collector and stuff like that. I mean, it's funny how some of these modern technology and these new things are great, and they add so much, but they also take away so much, and they change. They're as good sometimes as they are bad.
Yeah. Speaking of good, Parker Lee with the $10 super chat. This channel lives and breathes off of super chats. You will not see any more commercials going forward starting this year. Earlier this year, we've gotten rid of ads, which means there is no ad revenue. So this channel is going to live and breathe and die by super chats. We greatly appreciate people sharing super chats. Everything from $1 to $5 to $10, whatever. It all goes back into the community.
We don't kill it tonight.
We don't take any money from this. It all goes back in the community. It's just sitting in the YouTube fund right now. And by the end of the year, we're going to take everything that's culminated to come together, and we're going to do a giveaway of a raw graded book. I'll do a post on IG, or I'll do a live stream here that shows what the channel's made for the year, what we were able to withdraw, and what we were able to purchase for that, and do a giveaway. So Parker, thank you for that. Amen about consistency. I've seen some 9.8 books that were at best 9.4, 9.2. How can you trust the grade?
Yeah.
Everybody's got to start somewhere in their careers, and when it comes to grading books, they have to start somewhere. But I feel like CGC and CBCS and every other grading company out there, when they introduce new graders that are training or building that experience, are probably starting them out on the modern books, and that's where a lot of people see a lot of the grading inconsistency are in the modern books. Now, granted, I'm not saying there aren't inconsistencies in the other avenues; they just seem more prevalent at the modern level. And it kind of makes sense that if everybody's going to start somewhere, they're going to start somewhere that's going to have like the least financial impact overall for the whole collecting community. Because if somebody does a golden age book and one person grades it a 9.4 and another person grades it a 9.2, that could be a $30,000-$40,000 swing.
I mean, the thing they did to me screwed me pretty good.
That was a pretty hefty swing for you. I will attribute. I wasn't there, but I mean, man, I don't send stuff to Todd for signing because he manhandles books, man. I feel so bad for you, though.
Yeah, man.
That's terrible.
I have an IG page, and where I display all my books. Then when that came back, I haven't displayed anything else because it just, I don't know how I feel. But I did want to, again, give everyone props in the chat. Y'all have done an amazing job in the donations toward the nonprofit. That y'all have killed it tonight. I'm so like,
last year all of the donations went to the nonprofit charity of Mission 22. This year it's all going back to the community. Next year we might choose a non-for-profit. I wanted to continue supporting Mission 22. Hence, I'm always wearing their gear, and all of their links are down below. But this year, I wanted to do something to give back to the community, which is why we're doing the graded comic book giveaways every time we do an unboxing. And at the end of the year, everything that comes together, we wanted to buy comic books. Like if I could buy 3 Silver Age key books to give away to the community at the end of the year with everything that's come in, we will. That would be epic. This is probably the busiest year of giveaways for the channel so far, and there are other channels out there that do giveaways every week, and I'd like to get to that. It's just kind of tough to be shipping 2-3 packages a week while working full-time as well.
Sometimes you freeze is so funny, and what you're looking like.
It happens. It happens.
You're just you're like,
yeah. Yeah, like Parker, there's no profit to be made in graded if they're only selling for $30, $40, $50 more than what you're paying for the raw book. And Three
They-
Rivers agrees with that.
those days have kind of just they're everything's calmed down. Everything's kind of come back down to earth as far as the money to be had or made or whatever.
And that's not to say that there isn't money to be made for the people that are running businesses. They just have to be a lot smarter, and they have to really, really focus on skating where the puck is going to be, and not focusing on where the skating where the puck is at right now. Because if you're focusing on that puck and where it is, you're already behind the game.
Yeah, sure.
That being said, the AI grading of comic books is. I wonder when we're going to get any official news. I feel like that's already.
I think they're doing it. I think that CGC is doing it right now, and I think that we just don't know it. They haven't made it come out and made an announcement. I think that they're testing it out without telling anybody, and I think that's why there was this big slew of books that came back that were like super hardcore graded.
There's only two ways to explain how CGC went from having the delays and the issues that they had to where they are now with the faster turn times, and that is either they graduated everybody out of training for books that they hired. What was it? Beginning of last year, the year before, post COVID or right at the tail end of COVID, they did a big hiring spree with the influx. When BlackRock purchased, was it BlackRock? Jay-Z's company purchased CGC, and they did an influx of hiring. Either all of those people that got hired in graduated from some sort of training program with grading comic books and are in that room and grading books, and that's what's helped with the turn times, or they've gone to artificial intelligence style grading, or they've done both.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they've done both. The AI thing is definitely I there's no doubt in my mind that that's being tested some way. But I would like to see what CBC. I just think that CBCS is just get dedicated more toward the correct grade and instead of like the growth of the business.
You know what's going to win a ton of people over, and I'll be honest with you, is just somebody, a representative of one of the grading companies with an iPhone or a cell phone of that matter, doing a video walkthrough, a 10-minute video walkthrough. Hey, your books, here's our loading dock. They get dropped off. Here's Peter Parker, the guy at the shipping counter who handles your book and does a great job signing them in. And here's building that relationship status within the community of the people that handle those books, because people don't go to CGC to work for 6 months and then leave unless they don't like the job. There are people there building careers. There are people there that have been grading books since before the dawn of graded comic books. They've been grading books. These people had to start somewhere in the community. 2015. CGC is not that old, mind you. CGC is less than. Is CGC 20 years old? CGC started in like the early 2000s. What I'm getting at is there were people working at CGC that grading comic books was their hobby back in the day. They started somewhere. Everybody has to start somewhere. But if they just sat down and recorded a little walkthrough video of here's Peter Parker unloading your books at the dock, here's so-and-so signing them in and scanning these books, and then here's meet this person, meet that person, da-da-da. Instead of just kind of the heads of the grading companies stepping up and having a video or a conference call or coming onto a YouTube channel to talk about the companies and how they're handling these situations and how they're trying to get better. A little camaraderie with the people that are there that are working. You know how proud some of those people would be, those new people coming into those positions that see themselves on that video, and the community's like, yeah, thank you, Peter Parker, for doing a great job handling those books. Now, granted, you can't make everybody happy, and this is really a pipe dream to think about. Just kind of doing a little, not necessarily transparency, but a little personability or a little customer service.
That's a novel idea.
You know what I mean? Some of that. And I guess this is a good opportunity to kind of close out that raw versus graded. You and I both agree that we're seeing a trend where raw books and the community overall and other channels have agreed raw books are selling for more than they have in quite some time. But I'm personally seeing at conventions now where graded books are so much cheaper on certain key books. For first Dr. Aphra, I mean, that's one of the best unrealized, not on screen characters in Star Wars. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother conversation. But when those prices are that low for the graded books, how do I not add to my personal collection? You know what I mean? This is a good opportunity to kind of get into the comments really quick and segue our way over to New Comic Book Day for a little bit. We're running long in the teeth. That's okay. It's just me and you tonight, and we're just having fun with it. As much as the movement to use AI freaks me out, that might be the best way to build some kind of grading system that's free from human bias of the grader. He's not wrong. He's not wrong, or she. I'm sorry.
Hey.
Ray Film. Sorry. You know what I mean. That individual is not wrong, and that comment is as scary as that is. Quality assurance, QA, quality assurance. I've lived and breathed that in my career for some time. You build it, and we'll rapid fire through these comments before we get into New Comic Book Day. You build it based on a point system that's publicly known, and the AI would process the book against the data set. Interesting. I know 9/8s that aren't 10s, but I've seen multiple color breaking spine ticks that got 9/8. That's just ridiculous. Well, I know 9/8s are, if I remember correctly, 9/8s are roughly allotted like 2 issues that can have with them. Obviously, 10s are 0 issues, perfection. 9, I think, can have none or 1. 9/8s like 2. Like, I've gone through books that have been perfect except for one minute spine tick, and then it'll get 9/8. Well, you can have 9/8s up to 2 things, and if that's the only thing wrong with it, I'm not a professional grader though, so don't take my word for it. 30 to 125 seems the norm for the flip. Yeah, so I agree with Joe's doing, saying it's kind of the norm for the flip. And when you break down the math and break down what your actual profit level is, and then you break down what you're paying yourself per hour after all your expenses, it's not worth it. You got to move hundreds of graded comic books to really make it worth your while. And anybody that is turning a profit moving graded comic books on the regular, good for them. I support them in their hobbies and their passions, and they are a very valuable part to the collecting community, because if we had fewer vendors, fewer people selling books, it'd be much harder to get some of those books. Man, chime in whenever. We're just, like we're saying, we're just rapid fire and getting over to New Comic Book Day. Bottom of Moko, Department of Truth 1, foil is a slab 98 for like 20. There you go. Like we said, the market is ripe for buying opportunities right now. It feels like, I think when eBay Live hits, that it will drive prices even lower.
Yeah, that was a unique comment there. It's gonna be interesting to see how that works.
I think he's right. If you get enough people on there selling live, and it's not going to be like the influx like we saw with Whatnot. There's not going to eBay Live, or eBay's already established. They don't need to sign up 200 people to get onto eBay Live to establish eBay Live. They'll establish it themselves. We won't see a high frequency of sellers, but if you see a high frequency or an influx of items being sold, then yeah, I can see it driving down prices. But I think, I don't know, man. I don't understand how eBay Live is going to work. They're not starting stuff at $1. If they start stuff at what they consider fair market value, won't prices stabilize or hold? Maybe the frequency of competition will affect that. Either way, 30 raw, 125, 9/8 graded, $50 for a book and $40 to get it graded and possibly get it back as a 9/8, or pay 100 to 120 guarantee and get a 9/8. That's the thing, Parker, man. That's where, like, I was stoked to pick this up for 200. The work is done. It's guaranteed. It's at a 9/8. I don't have to do any of the work, and I don't have to question it. And the Star Wars books are rife with color rub problems anyways. So that's where I'm kind of in Parker's head there with that comment. Joe, thank you for the $10 super chat. Support your boys. Again, Brian and Bryan will be back at some point. For everybody watching this live and watching this on the replay, contact us if you guys want to be a part of the show and hang out and have these conversations and chat live with us, because tonight we've got room. We could have room next week or the week after. You never know. He's saying, yo, Joe, everybody's saying hi again. Here is my idea. Comic book is scanned every page, and AI marks all the defects on each scanned image and lists them, including length and area affected, quantitative analysis. Interesting. Yeah, buyer's market, Cup of Comics. I feel like we're getting further and further into a buyer's market. That was a solid pickup. You guys had solid pickups too. I miss everybody from Heroes Con. I can't wait to make some time this holiday weekend to sit down and watch everybody's content and potentially get my own content recorded and done. A lot of it's saved and ready to go. But Brian. You got Brian, and Ryan, the law firms of Brian, and Ryan. That's why this show is always tough for me every week.
BB&R.
We're going to get in a New Comic Book Day, brother.
All right. I was just looking to see what all is going to be happening. The first thing I saw is that Aliens.
We need a bumper for New Comic Book Day at some point is what we need to do too.
Oh, yeah. It needs to be a metal song.
Now, traditionally, McClay would kick off with what his top cover picks are. I will say that this week, Ryan and I have not had a time to come to a consensus on what our cover picks are. But that's the beauty of the internet. For those that you guys are visually watching, we'll cover some of that, man. Ryan, go ahead with what you're looking forward to tomorrow.
Alien. I've been loving this newer Alien series, and it's been a while since they released one. This I don't know. I'm pretty sure I got number 2, but that Alien series, this new one that came out, is pretty it's been pretty cool. And so let me see. Is it in fact? Nope. The number 3 is coming out, so I don't know if I missed missed one.
Yeah, number 2 was out.
Yeah. So, but the series has been pretty cool. That whole run, the first run was like, The second one was definitely better, and it's continued on. So it's been a pretty good series.
I'm pulling it. So.
Yep. I saw Vanish was coming out. I stopped reading Vanish though. I lost interest in that book.
That was definitely like a flash in the pan, so to speak. Was that Donnie Cates writing for Image? Was it?
Yeah, and it's still. I mean, I think he's just back. I guess he's back writing. I guess now and doing stuff. But there's no. Oh no, there is There's Extreme Rhynoverse. I guess it's a reprint or a second print of number 1 is coming out this week. So I'm a big proponent of the second prints.
Hold on, Extreme Venomverse, you said?
Yeah.
When you list them off, I'm trying to get to the covers before we move on to the next book. Is that going to be? See, I'm doing it in McClay now. Print. Is that going to be V or is that going to be E?
Extreme.
So that'd be. Are they doing it that way or are they?
Let me see. I don't know. On previews, it's EX. It's after D on previews world, but I don't know what it's like in. What are you're looking at through? What are you looking at it through?
League of Comic Geeks.
Yeah, so it would be go down.
Let's just go to most pulled. Venom's usually up there pretty high. Vanish. I'm not seeing a Venom title.
Yeah,
Carnage Reigns.
It's a second print, so maybe they're not showing it. I don't know.
Oh, I could. I bet you I don't even have the extra prints, variants, and reprints. There we go. You got to select that. That's why we weren't seeing it. It's still.
Yeah. It's just one book. It's a cool. It's just a black SpiderMan on the cover. But and I'm trying to see when the second print of that Void Rivals is coming out. I don't know when that's.
Yeah, it might be a little early for the second print yet. It might be a couple more weeks. I feel like Void Rivals was just like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, what is that right there? There's a Venom on that one cover. I didn't even notice that. The ASM.
Ooh,
right there. What is
Amazing Spider-Man 28?
Damn, that's the badass looking cover right there.
Holy crap.
It's cool looking. Yeah.
We definitely eat with our eyes, man. And I have been one where I've been steering away from that. Do you got any more?
No, that's about just. I was gonna see if they released. I'm waiting for them to release a box, a graphic box. So yeah, I'll look and see if it's coming out. You can show yours.
Bumper, hardly know her. Bub, good to see you, man. Thanks for being here. Speaking of Golden Age and great knowledge, if you guys don't know Bub's Comics, please follow him on Instagram and YouTube. A very, very, very valued member of the comic book community, collecting Golden Age and some phenomenal records. He's got great content over there. Bub is a great resource at Heroes Con when it comes to kind of digging and learning how to dig and learning about some of the vendors, the Golden Age vendors too. So Bub, thank you again for your support and help at Heroes Con. It's Heat Seeker week. It is a hot week down for you, Ryan. Yeah, Dr. Afra 33, that's one that I'm pulling. I want to talk about Cosmic War. That's true. That is a great cover. So
Heat Seeker week.
Yeah, Heat Seeker week. I'm trying to remember what that was referenced to. World Tree 3 is out. I read the first issue and I need to get back on this. I love this cover. It's just creepier and shit. Like, we eat with our eyes, right? This cover makes me want to read this book. For sure. I won't get into the variants. I won't personally purchase any of the variants, but I love this Ivan Tao.
That is nice. That's cool.
I have.
It reminds me of the chick from what's that band? Damn it, I can't remember their name. I'll think of it in a minute.
Something is Killing the Children cover homage here. There's some great covers here. I've just been very disciplined about buying. Ooh, Clockwork Orange.
You learned your lesson from.
I got smarter. I just got smarter. I'm being very selective on the covers that I buy. Like I'll support the retailers that support us, and I'm good friends with Bird City Comics, Hive Comics, Wanted Comics. Some of those vendors that I have a personal relationship. The Comic Corner, Bryan, and those guys at the Comic Corner. I have a personal friendship and relationship with those people, and I will support them. I just won't buy all covers, all comics, commies. What commies? I won't buy all covers, all copies, all printings of a series anymore. I learned my lesson there for sure. Got a BTC action figure variant. That's kind of neat.
She looks like that chick from what is it? Oh man, Diane Ward.
So World Tree is one that I definitely want to read. They even have the, oh good lord, here's a 1 in 100. That's the Department of Truth, and Somebody's Killing Children did an homage to that. I think Somebody's Killing Children 11 did an homage of Department of Truth, and now they're doing an homage of there's so many homages that some of them are done really well and some of them are just kind of mind-blowing that we're still homaging something that people, do we even really want it or need it? We'll see what happens. As everybody that's been watching the channel knows, I've been a massive Star Wars reader and fan for a long time. Nope. I will pick up the Last Ronin and the Lost Years #4 to add to the collection for reading purposes, but Dr. Aphra 33, I love the covers that they're coming out with for the Aphra series lately. And I'm excited to read this. There's the Pride variant. I like that Pride variant. And then, where is it? The David Marquez variant. Which one was that again? There it is. There's the Marquez. World Tree is Tinian, so expect Somebody's Killing Children DOT homages. Joe says, yeah, for sure. That's definitely seeing that. There was a couple other Star Wars titles out this week. I haven't even looked at my pull list on my email yet. I'm afraid to, because my pull list for last week that I forgot to pick up is huge. Because Mandalorian Season 2, Volume 2 came out, and there was a 1 in 100 in there. There's a lot going on there as well. High Republic Adventures 6 and High Republic Adventures #7. We got back-to-back releases here for that. Interesting. High Republic Adventures #8. Wait a second. They're just dumping all the rest of the issues out on this week. 6, 7, and 8.
Pow.
That's weird.
Beady bam.
Biggity bow, as Bryan says. Let's see who else in the chat. Dr. Aphra 33 covering World Trees, Tinian. Yeah. What else is everybody picking up? I stopped Wednesday Warring. I do pre-order a couple of months in advance with DCBS to save 40%. That's huge. That's when you talk about getting really smart in the game. Mm-hmm. If you can let go of that little bit of FOMO about being able to read that book. See, I still carry that FOMO with like Saga and Star Wars, that every month when those issues come out, I got to read them right away. I can't wait as long as like Parker's doing when he orders a month in advance to get those books. And I know there are a lot of people out there that don't have LCSs near them. They've got to wait too. We get some of those messages on the backside of things where somebody will watch the show like a week or two later when they find they've gotten their books in the mail and read them.
Yeah, that's a tough, man. I've thought about that a couple of times. Like you're in the middle of nowhere.
Joe, is the art that bad in Volume 2? I haven't looked at it yet. That's scary. I will say Marvel needs to step up their game with artwork in Star Wars. And what I mean by that is give artists more time to do good quality work, Marvel. That's my biggest complaint, is the deadlines that Marvel puts on artists. And it shows wholeheartedly how their stuff comes out. And it's like, it just needed another week or two or whatever.
Few more days.
More Turtles stuff coming out. And nothing's really jumping off me. I wish I would have taken more time to look for cover variants for a cover pick of the week, but
I was trying to look through stuff, but I didn't get a chance to delve into it.
Ghost Rider has had some phenomenal covers over the last few months. And take a quick peek. Ooh. I like that.
It's just the character himself is just an awesome character to be on a cover of a comic.
Yeah.
All the fire and everything, just the colors, and man. Fire.
This would be really cool to do a signature down in this bottom corner panel, but in a way that contrasts the orange and the yellow.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I look at a lot of these Ghost Rider books and think about signing events for some reason.
Like a blue one right there, yeah.
Oh God. Oh Joe, the art in Mando is real bad. Oh, that sucks, man.
You're making me real excited over here.
I already ordered them. They're at my LCS. I don't want to be that guy that's not going to pay for them. I will say this though: one of the bright sides of being a little bit late picking up my books is I will support my LCS. But if they want eBay prices for the ratios and those eBay prices tank a week later, I mean, like, hey guys, come on now, like, what's going on here?
What's going on?
My LCS offers a phenomenal I've had a phenomenal relationship with my LCS where they don't gouge. They take eBay prices and do discounts off of that, substantial discounts. But God, the Ghost Rider covers are freaking killer. What's with all the ads this week? I gotta look at my computer setup. I'm getting a bunch of ads for some reason. What else? Anything sticking out to you? I mean, it all in all, it feels like it's gonna be average summer week with some good reading. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Lost Years 4. I have not read any of the books, but I've been picking up cover A's so I can sit down and read them all at one point. I like this. This is definitely a great Turtles homage here. It reminds me of the video VHS cassette tape of the second movie, I think. It brings back some memories. They're just not very clear. Eastman and Bishop. I love this Eastman cover. I really do. This is where Eastman's artwork really shines, in my opinion, is Turtles covers. What else? And In-Hyuk Lee. See, I think this is In-Hyuk Lee does such great artwork. I think this is too clean cut for Turtles. I think Turtles need to be a little bit like, this is dark and gritty, yeah, but then you've got the spotlight on the turtle, and it's very like detailed and it's everything, like all of his gear looks ultra clean. You know what I mean? Like none of it looks weathered or dark or dirty or bloody. Like In-Hyuk Lee does fantastic work, but
it looks like it's computer made, like almost AI made.
Yeah, she should look a lot rougher. That's a really good cover too. I'm just picking away here. I heard Ralph Baby Virgin negative variant. This is like a rabbit hole down here. It's like not for me. It's not bad. It's just not for me. It's okay. I'm kind of running out of steam. Oh, Darth Vader's out. Red, black, white, and red. I'm kind of running out of steam, Ryan. If anybody else has anything in the chat that they want to talk about New Comic Book Day, pull it up. That's an interesting crotch shot of Vader. That's the Vader crotch shot right here. Definitely
shot of the year right there.
Definitely not the most flattering Vader cover I've ever seen, but
it's the crotch shot of the year.
It's not bad. I just don't expect to be confronted with Vader's junk on a comic book cover.
It's Vader.
It's Vader. Oh, this is a great Vader cover, though. If it would load. Uh-oh. Did I just lose internet? No, you're still there, Ryan. Load. No, this must be League of Comic Geeks having issues over here. Yeah, the image is broken. It's not loaded. That's League of New Comic Geeks. That's the New Comic Book Day, man. I'm kind of running out of steam. We've run long in the tooth. We're half an hour over. I don't mind running a little bit long because I pretty much hop right into bed for work tomorrow. In the same fashion, it's just been you and I tonight, and I've had a blast, and I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, it's good to do it up to the two amigos. My first, I told earlier how I got on the show. My first show I ever did was actually with you. That's how I got introduced into YouTube. So it's cool to go back to my roots.
Isn't Jeff Lemire's new series Fish Flies coming out this week? Ooh, let's take a peek really quick. And let's see if we can get it alphabetical to try to make it a little less painful on the viewers. Fish Flies. Say that 5 times fast. I don't see it. Fables, Fantasy, Feeder. Interesting. I'm not seeing it on League of New Comics. Doesn't mean it's not going to be out. I know sometimes League of Comic Geeks doesn't catch everything. It's just the quickest, easiest website for us to access to talk about what's coming out tomorrow. They'll follow it up last, Ronan, we promise. Good God.
Last.
Yeah, we're making up for missing last week. I don't know if I should run a new comic book day show tomorrow. I don't have anything set up, and it's late enough in the night that I'm not going to set anything up until tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. And I've got 2 weeks worth of books to cover tomorrow if I'm going to do it. So it's usually I like to hop on the Comic Vets channel and do his 7 p.m. new comic book day hangout with them, and then go live 8:30 on my channel. I might not make it till 9, depending on how things go. We've got a couple other errands and side things to run tomorrow before we get into the 4th of July holiday. But that is New Comic Book Day. That is the show for the week. And again, Ryan, I greatly appreciate all your hard work and your energy every week. Awesome. It's been great hanging out with you. And everybody in the chat. We appreciate everybody in the chat and in the comments.
I filled it in the chat today. Y'all really helped to support it. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that being said, man, it's time for what, Ryan?
Uno más tingo?
We got to learn how to say it in German and other languages, so we do a different language every week.
Asian persuasion.
What you got, buddy?
Uno más tingo doso. So Rhynoverse on eBay, I'm putting up a ton of football cards going up for those that are collecting football cards and want some access to a lot of product. It's arriving. It's being pushed. I'm doing a thing where I'm putting up new stuff every day, and so it won't show up today, but it'll be showing up this evening and going forward. Also, if you're a big metal head and you like to listen to metal, a new song by a group called Paleface Swiss just came out. I just warn you that if you do listen to it, make sure you're close to ER because you might break your neck. Again, so it's called Paleface Swiss, and it's called Please End Me. So go check it out.
That's heavy metal right there, brother.
Yeah, break your neck.
Good Lord, that's good stuff. My one more thing this week is getting back on the horse content wise after Heroes Con and after supporting our family this past week last week. I became very demotivated after that, going from the con right to a funeral, right to the passing of a family member at the funeral and the support, and became quite demotivated. Wasn't looking forward to New Comic Book Day, wasn't looking forward to content. You helped re-energize me, and so did the everybody in the live chat and the community tonight, and I had a lot of fun. So getting back on that horse content wise, I have Heroes Con stuff that I'd like to put together for some shorts, some reels, some whatever, because we had a ton of great pictures and we had a ton of great memories, lots of great memories out of Heroes Con. But truly, my one more thing is I have another update about the Clone Wars 1 book, Ryan. CGC received it today, officially received it for grading and scheduled it for grading today. And they're turning out their tap for fast track CGC, or the fast track graded books, or the signature books, is 10 days, if I remember correctly. So 10 business days.
That's right around the corner then.
So, but then it also, the middle of that is the 4th of July holiday on next Tuesday. So I don't know.
You're going to take Monday off probably too.
They're probably going to take Monday off. So either I'm going to get a shipping notification Thursday or Friday this week, and they're going to fast track the book, or like get it done and ship it, or it's going to sit in limbo through the 4th of July holiday, and I wasted money on fast tracking the book, which kind of sucks. I didn't think anything of it, but we paid for the CCS pressing, because this is my one kind of tip that I've learned over the years. If you send a book in for signing, or you get it signed at a convention and then send it in, the only company that you can have press a book is CCS, is the in-house CGC pressing services. And it's like $15. And it's like an insurance policy to make sure that nothing goes wrong from the signing, or nothing changes from the signing of that book going on. So we paid for that. That's what took the first 4 weeks after Motor City Con was CCS. Their fast track pressing was still 4 weeks. 2 weeks, a week to ship it, 3 weeks there, and then it took them 7 or 8 business days to get it over to CGC. Granted, I'm not in a rush. I want high quality service is what I'm in. I'm not after a rush service. I'm after high quality. But that means that is either the holiday week, the 4th of July holiday week, we could be unboxing that book that Friday, or within a couple of weeks after the holiday, we could be unboxing that book, that double signed book from Ashley Eckstein and Matt Lantern. And that's my one more thing, is I'm over the moon, buddy.
I can't wait for it. I want to check out. I want to see a face when you open it up.
Dude, we're going to be recording. We're going to be live. We are also going to have the company, the LCS, local to the Detroit area in Michigan, State of Comics, the phenomenal guys, Peter and Ryan, that handled that book and took my business, took great care of me, great customer service guys. We're going to have them on live to be a part of that unboxing. If they're available, we're going to send them an invite and get it all set up. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, great week, man. We're long in the teeth. I'm ready to go to bed. How about you, man?
Break my neck. Later, guys. I've had an enjoyable night. It's been great.
Have a great week, everybody. Stay tuned tomorrow and keep the good energy flowing, right?
Stay cool out there because it's hot.
Remember, the most important thing all day, every day is you. You're enough. And we're all we've got, so take care of each other. Boogity bow! See you all next week.
Later.
Double up. The money I color. Excuse me while I change. The roller buggy has made me sweaty. Yeah.